Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Maddrey, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
Today we are talking about CCR set in Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. So a lot of the Southwest, basically. And so I think we all agreed that Utah was a hard find. Especially because we're looking for not historical. Utah seems to attract more historical books, from what I could find, at least. But the others weren't too hard to find, I didn't think. Did you guys struggle with the others?
Oh, I struggled with Arizona, actually.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think, the other thing with Utah, too, is that a lot of the Christian books set in Utah, there's a lot of Latter-day Saints, Mormon influence in many of those for some strange reason. So if you're trying to look for something that is not that, it's harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of clean and wholesome and sweet romance set in Utah. That's what I was finding.
Yes.
And I'm really trying to look at books that do have stronger rather than lighter faith elements, because I know that that's something that keeps coming up in the reader groups where readers are like, how Christian is this book? Is it going to give me a strong, solid faith arc and story, or is it more a Christian worldview? So but as having that awareness in my head, that also meant there were some that I saw in Utah. I thought, no, that's not going to be what we're looking for this episode.
There was more sweet available, and I didn't choose any of the sweet either because we say we're a CCR podcast, so we're going to try to stick to CCR.
He's like already over it.
Yeah.
Oh,
fortunately, that's okay. That's okay. But we can go ahead and start. Who wants to go first? Narelle, you want to kick us off?
Yes. Well, are we going to start in Utah first?
Sure. We can start in Utah.
So the one that I have for Utah, and I can thank someone in Avid Readers, a Christian fiction Facebook group, which has really helped me with these episodes.
Yes.
This particular episode, I asked some questions about books set in different places. And one of the readers there reminded me of Angela Ruth Strong's book, Finding Love in Park City, Utah, which I had completely blanked on being set in Utah. And I don't know why I blanked on it. And I think it's because I just don't know very much about Utah. And Park City didn't actually geographically mean anything to me, being an Aussie. So anyway, so I read this book back in 2017 when it was released in a box set. And I know Valerie and I at different times have mentioned some of the Resort to Love books in previous episodes. And I can't really tell you a lot about it because I sadly ran out of time to reread it. And I really want to reread this one because I remember it was set around the Sundance Film Festival, which I find fascinating. And the heroine's a tabloid journalist who's there trying to interview an actress, and the hero is the younger brother-in-law of the actress. And it was a really fun story, and I remember it, and I'm very sad I can't tell you any more about it. Did either of you guys pick this one?
I did not, because I figured that was the only one that I could come up with for Utah, and I'm like, I know Narelle and Valerie are going to both have it, so I'm not even going to use them bother.
I think one thing with this Resort to Love series of Angela Ruth Strong is that they are 5 brothers. Correct me if I'm wrong. The family name is Flake. And so this actress is the heroine of one of the earlier books in the series. And we also meet the current hero in the earlier books in the series. Because this one, I want to say, is the very last one, but I did not look that up to verify. So sorry, Angela, if I got that wrong.
It is the last one, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
The journalist, CJ, is somebody we haven't met before. But she's there. She really badly needs a scoop. And so she's trying to get in. She knows this actress is going to be at this festival, and she is determined to get an interview. And Sam, yes, it's Sam, who is operating as his sister-in-law's bodyguard, basically. And he's kind of like, I don't think so. And so they're like pushing against each other, not physically, but she wants in and he wants to keep her out. And so that was a fun angle. I don't know that I've ever quite seen that before.
Angela does that well. I think there's
Mm.
often that push pull in her
No, she is a really good author. I
Yeah.
enjoy her books for that a lot. But yeah, there was, I think this is a series where Narelle, where if you've read all the books in order, then you'll have a better understanding of who Sam is and why he's so protective of his sister-in-law.
Sure.
But if you read it in the box set, you probably did read them in order.
No, she's in box sets too, though. She says that.
But it's
a box set of
27.
a single series.
It's 2017. So I wasn't writing in 2017. I was working the day job, and I was reading. I'm sure I read it in order, because once I start something and really like it, I will keep going.
And I don't particularly, in the box, right?
Yeah. So it's the same author in a box will just keep me going, because particularly if the characters are there. I'm more jumpy around with box sets if it's multi-author.
I agree.
Okay.
I do
single
author.
author.
Some I just skip because they're maybe not my favorite, or it's a topic that, whatever. I might not have picked up solo books by that author either.
I don't understand how you guys don't have people, mysterious little like book angel devil people that are like, you can't skip, you have to read them all.
You DNF more books than I do, honey.
Lately, I've been trying to be better about it, but lately
DNF would be did not finish.
Lately, it's only been because apparently I've been choosing really horrible books lately.
So, I DNF as well, so I can't talk. I DNF as well if I can DNF off the first page if I just if it doesn't appeal to me.
Then I haven't bought it, because I always read the sample.
Yeah.
So if it's going to be so bad that I would DNF on the first page, it's never on my Kindle to start with.
I am getting Utah here now.
Do you have a book in Utah as well, Beth?
No, I don't.
Okay, well I do. A different one as well.
Cool. Well done.
You're going to like this one, Beth. It's Ruth Pendleton is the author, and the book is called A Llama for the Cowboy.
Excellent.
So it sounds great.
There is a cowboy.
Okay.
Porter is a cowboy. He is actually a widowed rancher.
Did you say a llama?
He's on his way to town when he spots a llama stuck in a thicket, and he stops to help it, to free it. And he meets its owner, Emily, who does not actually take kindly to his trespassing and interfering. She's got everything handled. Thank you very much. The road is over there. Get out. Okay. So she has recently moved in to start a llama therapy center, and she is super prickly about anybody who thinks she needs help. She doesn't need help, not with getting her llama out of the thicket, and not for any other reason at all.
Do the llamas need therapy, or the llamas provide therapy?
Which do you think?
Well, I don't know. I've met some llamas. They could use some therapy. They're very
provide. Anyway, so at first you're like, why would she like snap at him for helping? But this is a plot point, right?
Okay.
So you figure out why she is so much in the DIY camp. Like it's a big thing for her. It's turns out to be the big thing in the story. Anyways, there's a whole series of books, no surprise, about Porter's siblings as well. But I have only read book 1 because the title.
You needed one. Yeah.
I needed one, but also because, I mean, llama, right?
Oh, yeah. Llamas are cool.
Anyways, that was my Utah pick. And there were strong spiritual threads throughout. And
yay.
So, yeah, I'm comfortable recommending it in that way.
Cool.
I'm still very amused at llama therapy.
Yes,
I may have to read it. Just because.
You should read the book.
It's outstanding. Do you have more in Utah, Narelle, or was that it?
No. One and done.
One and done. Poor Utah. All right, let's move south then into Arizona.
I got nothing.
Okay. I have.
That's you guys.
Really?
Before.
Oh, all right.
I have one.
All right, let's have it.
How many of you got, Beth?
I have 2.
Would you want to go first?
Sure.
Yeah, you go first.
So the first one I have is Falling for a Real Cowboy. And you'll want to go ahead and write down that I voluntarily read a cowboy book. It's by Karen Baney. And actually, I'm not going to say a ton about it because we actually are having Karen on to talk about this book in December. So, but
So you're kind of double dipping here with
I
this
am
one.
totally double dipping.
Oh.
Yes. But it's set
Well, I
on
guess
a
we'll let
guest
you.
ranch in Arizona, which I thought was so interesting because I don't associate Arizona with guest ranches. But I really enjoyed the guest ranch in Arizona aspect of it. And so it's not so much cowboy like out herding cattle cowboy so much as it is the dude ranch guest ranch experience kind of thing.
Right.
But it was really interesting. It was interesting. But I'm not going to say more because, like I said, she's coming to talk. So
Okay.
stay tuned. All right.
So you
Narelle.
guys need to keep watching the episodes and listening to the podcasts and stuff. So you don't miss that.
Yes. And you can, as you can tell, I read everything at the last minute. I had no idea that book I'm meant to be reading in the next week or so is in Arizona.
Yep.
But there you go. So my one, I'm going to thank Arwen, I think, is it Aryn? How would you pronounce that name?
Arwen.
Arwen, yes, Arwen from Avid Readers, who, when I went there and said, I need help, I need to find book sets in these states, explained to me how to search on my Kindle for specific things. And I had no idea that there was this particular search on the Paperwhite where you could put in a state and it will actually do a deep dive into all of the books. Oh. So thank you to Arwen, because I found a book in Arizona from doing this that I never would have found with a normal search.
That
and
you
it's
already
called
own.
Yeah,
I already owned it. Yeah. So yeah. So go Avid Readers. Yeah. So this one is called Potato Flake Christmas by Cathe Swanson, and it was in a Hearts Aglow box.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would never have found this, and I would never have thought this was Arizona, but it is. And so the story set up with this one is that Claire is a retail management trainee in Minnesota, and she ends up having to leave her job because her bosses are awful. And the whole retail setup was just, I thought it was spot on in terms of how that was portrayed with these slave driver bosses that expect their employees to look perfect. And yeah, it's a whole thing. Anyway, so she's in Minnesota in winter, heading towards Christmas. And her grandmother, Vivian, is in Arizona. And Vivian and Herb are good friends. So Herb's also in Arizona. And he is the manager of the park. It's called... I had it written down. Of course, I can't find it. There's it's a seniors caravan park called Golden Sun Oasis. So we've got these two seniors that are very good friends that live in this caravan park, but are feeling lonely for their family. So Vivian really wants Claire to come and stay with her. And so she convinces Claire in a weak moment to come down for Christmas. And because Claire's having a horrible time at her job, she does that. Then we all have Jeffrey. So he's finished college. His parents are missionaries, and he's been the missionary kid that's been dragged around the world with his parents, but quite happily. And I really like the missionary element in this story because I think it had a very interesting angle that Valerie, I think, would appreciate this one if you haven't read this one, because you like missionary. Yeah, you like missionary sort of angles in the story. And his parents had spent a lot of time in Indonesia training missionaries and doing this type of thing, but they were based in Hawaii. So his great uncle Herb has to have heart surgery and he's on his own. And so he says to Jeffrey, can you come over to Arizona and help me? At the same time, if we've got Vivian, the grandma, saying to Claire, can you come over and help me? And although her reasoning wasn't as good as Herb's, but anyway. And so we end up with Claire and Jeffrey thrown together by their very well-meaning matchmaking relatives. And it was just a really fun, cute story. It was based around their church. He was doing volunteer work to set up a kids club after school for the kids. And it's really interesting. When my kids were younger, I was involved in a Wednesday club that met after school at my kids' local school. And so I found that a really nice sort of walk down memory lane in my own little head in terms of being involved with kids' clubs and different things I'd done when I was younger. And so, of course, we have Friends to More happening, and we kind of have a double romance going on. And it kind of reminded me a bit of, you know, how Melody Carlson will have those types of books that it's not massively heavy on the romance, but it is very romantic, but you could define it as contemporary fiction.
Sure.
So it kind of sat like that. It kind of had a bit of a Melody Carlson vibe in terms of that type of thing. And it was just a really fun story with these lovely characters.
I've got that one on my
or
not.
So it had a solid faith thread, really solid. So it really ticked the box on that. And it was fun. And I got to see Arizona and to appreciate how Christmas in Arizona is very different to what Christmas would be in Minnesota. And again, it was different to Hawaii. So it's in the Hearts Aglow box, which I don't think is available any longer because Potato Flake Christmas is available as a single.
Okay.
So I don't know if the box still exists, but it was a Shatona Harvig, Jaycee Weaver, and Tony Sharlow were the other authors in the box. And it was 2017.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. So I got Christmas as well. So that made me very happy to be reading a Christmas book set in Arizona, but I did really enjoy it. So if you've got this one floating around, go read it.
Excellent.
I'll look for it. I might have it.
Yeah.
So my other Arizona book was The Nurse's Homecoming by Allie, and I'm going to mess it up. I think it's Pleiter.
I think so.
Pleiter.
Pleiter, I think it is.
Pleiter. Don't know.
Yeah.
Allie, let us know. This is love inspired. And it is she comes home. She's been doing nursing work on a cruise ship, and her father kind of forced her into moving in that direction because he wanted to break her up with her college boyfriend. And because he was from town and he was the wrong side of the tracks, the age old interfering father, right? We have too much wealth and status and you're entirely too good for him. So she's come home at the end of a broken engagement she had with someone suitable. And she decides to be this temporary camp nurse at this camp that they're in the process of getting started on the mountain north of town, to help families who have experienced violent loss sort of have a place to come and work through their grief and recover.
Okay.
And
that's a very unique.
Yeah. It actually, that sort of reminded me of Lee Tobin McLean's Veterans Cottage series, same sort of idea. So I mean, they weren't all veterans, so there's a mom and a little boy whose father was a police officer who was killed in the line of duty who are there, and that sort of thing. And who should be sort of the handyman / maintenance man up at the camp but the unsuitable ex-boyfriend, who is of course still single.
Abound.
Yes. Still single, still in love with her. And what I loved most about this is there is a big twist about 3/4 of the way through. And it is fantastic. And it is tied to this really, halfway through, I'm like, this is nice. It has a good sort of spiritual, it's not deep, but it's good. And then we get this twist, which I can't tell you about because it's massive spoiler. And then the spiritual message was just incredible, as everything unraveled and got put back together. It was really masterfully done. I was surprised and incredibly pleased when I finished it. And I don't know that I've ever reread a love inspired book, but I would totally reread this one.
Cool.
There you go.
It was really quite enjoyable. Really quite enjoyable. So shall we go east to New Mexico then?
We could.
Okay.
Do you want to go, Narelle?
I will. So I only sort of went in one direction in New Mexico, and that was to Hope Ranch by Elizabeth Maddrey. So the series is fabulous, but I thought the one I would mention is Hope for Freedom. I really enjoyed Indigo's story, and it's Joachim, isn't it? The hero. Did I say that right?
No,
Joachim. Well, I can never say it. That's why I remember this one. And Australians can never say this. We have a real problem saying that, phrasing that particular. I won't even try again to say his name. So the guy. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And this is a pregnant heroine trope, and that can be hard to pull off, but Beth does a wonderful job with this one. It also touched on Easter as well. So we're going to go back into the archives. You can go back and hear either Val or I talk about this book. I think we both talked about it at some stage in episode number 3, the very beginning when we first started an episode we did on with New Beginnings of Mandy Blake. We talked about this Hope for Freedom. In episode number 15, which was an Easter episode, we did with Lee Tober McLean. We also talked about it in episode 19, which was a spiritual thread episode, and I think we had a guest, and I didn't write down who it was. And then we also talked about it in episode 24 in Weddings in CCR. So we've talked about this book at least 4 times that I could find. So but this whole series, I'd be talking for 10 minutes telling you the episode numbers. So I won't go any further, but I will hand over to Valerie.
I also have that one on my list, the series.
Yes.
Because of the time of year and because of first things first, the one that I was looking at more specifically was book number 1, Hope for Christmas.
Yeah.
So the entire series is about the Hewitt siblings and how they've been estranged from their grandparents because their father would have nothing to do with his parents. And now that they're adults, they're starting to drift back to their grandparents' ranch, Hope Ranch. And so they're finding love, which is great, but they're also finding Jesus. Or for the few that maybe knew a little bit about, they're definitely getting something happening that's deeper. So in the first book, Sion shows up on his grandparents' doorstep at Thanksgiving, and he falls for their cook, Maria, who has a 7-year-old, I think, Calvin. And it's just a lot of everything that you expect in a Christmas story, pretty much is in there. And of course, you've got a 7-year-old, so how can you go wrong with having a kid and Christmas? New Mexico isn't where you see, or not where I've seen most ranch stories, but also not most Christmas stories. So it's got some unique premises. And if you haven't read that series, go do it. Go do it today. Just
definitely. There's 6 books, I think, in the series.
Yes.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yep. So I went down to Albuquerque from Hope Ranch and went to Jaycee Weaver.
But a left turn at Albuquerque.
Exactly, the left turn in Albuquerque. And I chose my favorite of her books, which continues to be, I love her books and I read them as they come out, but my favorite continues to be Love, Laughter, and Luminarias. And it is the first book I read of hers.
And you told me to read it.
Way back.
And
it is set at Christmas. It is, and all of her books are uniquely New Mexico. Like you couldn't take her story and put it in Kansas and have it work. New Mexico is part of her stories.
I agree.
And this is no exception to that. We have a nerdy heroine who works in a comic book store and a hero who's trying to write his novel, but he's distracted and can't focus and is just struggling. And they're friends, and it's just sweet and delightful and charming. It's maybe a little lighter on the spiritual end of things, but it is still there. I don't think Jaycee could write a book without a spiritual thread. If she tried. And it's just, I love it.
I need to reread it. I do. Now you're talking about it, I'm remembering. Yeah.
One of hers that I picked was Braver with You, and mostly because of the hot air balloons on the cover. And the hot air balloon festival of Albuquerque, which plays into the story. So like you said, it's, my small town where I live does not have a hot air balloon festival.
Yeah.
So
we have one
here. there's lots of places she could not have set that.
Yeah.
But it works there.
So do you have is it hot air festivals normal in where you are? Because we have one in Canberra every March.
Just in Albuquerque.
It's a big deal.
I mean,
big deal of hot air.
There might be a couple others, but Albuquerque is the one
The best
that I think is known nationwide as the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta. Yeah.
Ah, okay. There you go. So you live somewhere and you think something's normal, but it's not.
No,
It's not.
it is not.
Not at
Yeah.
all.
More New Mexico, or are we good?
I'm good.
That was it.
You've covered
I
Jaycee.
wanted to talk about your books, and I wanted to make sure that Jaycee got a mention as well.
Yep. All right.
And you both mentioned Jaycee, so we're fine to move to somewhere.
North
Where are we going?
Colorado. We're going. We made a nice
Colorado.
little square of the four corner
Oh,
states.
look at you.
Well done. I actually didn't realize they all touched each other until you just said that. There you go. She shows my geography is interesting.
Because I grew up in New Mexico. Four Corners is a big deal when you're in that area. If you can, you really do need to go to Four Corners because you can stand in 4 states at the same time. And it's pretty cool. They have like a little thing on the ground that shows all the intersections of the states. It's very cool.
That's cool. That is cool.
All right. Colorado, Narelle.
Well, I've got 2 in Colorado.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about, so we have time for 2, don't we?
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to talk about Brandi Bruce first, and I'm going to talk about After the Rain. So this one's set in Denver. This was the follow-up to the last summer book, which I think I've said, was it last summer or something last summer?
Yeah.
Which is a love triangle book.
I was going to say, this is one you've talked about a lot. So.
Oh, yes. I've talked about these books. So, and Deborah was the one who was the loser in the love triangle in that previous book. And she is a DJ host on a morning show, and she's Miss Lonely Heart. So she gives advice, which is quite poignant because she's basically had her heart broken and lost in this previous relationship situation. And then the hero, Ben, he's a musician. And so the first time, the opening chapter is basically she sees him on stage and there's this connection that happens. And he's also, his day job's a pastor. So it's quite an interesting combination. And I talked about this episode, this book in episode 49, Musician Main Characters.
Okay.
And so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll flick you back to episode 49, but I really enjoyed this story. And I think I encouraged, Beth, did you end up reading it? I think I did encourage you to think about it.
I need to. I have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't yet.
So many books.
Yes.
So little time.
Yeah.
I know. So this one's set in Denver.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Valerie, where are you going in Colorado?
I'm going north of Denver. And if I were Narelle, I would tell you the episode number because I've talked about this book before. So look, she's going to go look it up. She'll tell us all. Candee is the author of the Wardrobe Dinner Theater series, starting with Dance Over Me, set in Fort Collins. And I mentioned the story a few months ago.
Yep.
And it's about Danielle, a young woman dancing in dinner theater. And she is looking for her brother, who was adopted after their parents died. She thought as a young child that she was being taken to be reunited with her brother, who was a baby, only to find out that he had just been picked up by the family that was adopting him. And she's like, but I am his. Yep. So she's been looking for him ever since. She's like 6 or 7, 8 years older than him. So she's been hunting for her baby brother forever. So that's part of the storyline, is that search. And meanwhile, she's falling in love with the director's son, Alex. And then there's people in the theater group who are jealous because she's a newcomer and how dare she get Alex's attention and stuff. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on as well. There are several books in the series. I have read the first 2 and enjoyed them. So yeah, Fort Collins, Colorado.
Cool. I'm remembering this now from when you talked about it.
I've bought those.
It's a completely
also
different world than anything that I'm accustomed to. The world of dinner theater and that kind of additions and dancing and it's just not something that's part of my world. So it was interesting from that view.
Those are on my Kindle also, waiting to be read. So I'm going to take us, and I'm pretty excited that I did not lose my Colorado out to either of you two, because I really thought I would. I'm going to take us, we're in Denver, but to the Solid Grounds Coffee Company by Carla Laureano.
Yes.
This is part of her Saturday Night Supper Club series. It's my favorite in the series. It is the third. I do love the other two, but this one's my favorite. It might be because of coffee. I don't know. It could just be that. But I really liked the hero of this one. He's a reformed-ish adrenaline junkie.
The pilot guy?
He's the climber, the rock climber.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm getting my heroes mixed up. That's terrible.
And then the heroine is just this petite little tiny type A go-getter. And I just they clash against each other in all the perfect ways. And like, I don't think it would work anywhere else in Denver. If you tried to set it in California, it wouldn't be the same story. And with Carla, you get a strong but subtle faith arc. It's there, but it's not gonna ever bash you over the head, which sometimes can be nice. And I just really, this is my favorite, but I like the whole series. That was my Colorado.
Like the Provenance one, and that's also Colorado. And we had her on, to discuss that way back.
We did. We did. It was episode 32 was when we had Carla Laureano on for Provenance. And we also talked about Provenance in episode 65 when we talked about heroes and heroines in foster care.
I'm guessing that Narelle.
I did some research.
Colorado.
Well, I have a few.
I did think about that, but I already it's already 5 books deep for this episode, and I thought maybe that was deep enough.
Probably, yeah.
But some of Carla's newer stuff is more on the sweet clean spectrum than I would
still in Colorado, but
many of them, just quite a few random.
Some in Florida or something randomly.
But but her older traditional ones are more on the faith arc end.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Do we have any that you just desperately feel like you need to mention that we didn't get
to?
No.
Okay. I'll throw one in. I'll just throw in the Saturday Night Supper Club, which is book 1 of the series Beth talked about. Episode 6. I mean, we talked about Carla Laureano a long time ago, which was when we talked about Winter But Not Christmas. Episode 31, when we talked about urban romance, because it's Denver. And episode 41, when we talked about food service. So I've given you about 10 episodes to go and listen to from this one episode.
You cracked me up.
Don't be bored. Yeah, Carla is one I think Narelle and I in particular really enjoy. So she
I have read, I think,
up a lot.
Pretty much everything she's written as well, and enjoyed it.
You don't fangirl about people the way we do.
What?
You don't fangirl about anyone the way that we do.
No, we're
steady. And Narelle and I are crazy. So
we're a bit special.
Yes, we
my mature personality.
Yes, we keep Valerie around to keep us in check.
Yes, but no, the first author I think of Colorado with CCR was Carla Laureano.
Me too.
Like, that's just where my brain went, but I held back because I didn't know what everyone else was talking about.
So, well,
sometimes then what happens is none of us talk about the one we have in common, because that's why I usually have a couple of backups that I can throw in if nobody else has mentioned them.
Yeah. Yes.
Good. I guess speaking of that, it's worth mentioning Jennifer Rodewald's Blue Columbine series is in Colorado.
Yes.
It's a good Colorado series.
And Narelle can cough up the episode numbers for that in 3, 2,
no.
1. I'm disappointed.
I need to do a search in my computer. I need to search I can find it, but I'd have to search.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, 2 minutes, not 3 seconds. Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. Well, we would love to know what we missed. We know we missed them because there's no way that we didn't. Thank you for joining us today at Story Chats. Leave us a comment on YouTube or the Facebook page. You can find information about the podcast at inspyromance.com/storychats. And if you are over on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We will see you again next week. But in the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, my mouse died again.